not been able to address on the FAQ, and we'll make sure that we get them up and posted for you. So, oh, and I didn't introduce myself. For those of you who have not met me, I'm Dr. Selena Estrada Thomas, and I'm your superintendent. And it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. So our purpose for making the table talk set up today for getting these, we've got one every day this week. Our last one on Friday is in Spanish. Just an opportunity to make ourselves available, give our parents and community an opportunity to ask questions about our instructional safety plan that we have in place. Just a brief recap, our teachers, as a matter of fact, well, we greeted all of our new employees today on Monday, August the 3rd, all of our teachers and aides and all campus-based staff. They all report on Thursday, August 6th. And then on Tuesday, August the 18th, we will roll out virtual instruction for everyone. We'll go 100% virtual until Friday, September 4th. The instructional team and I we will collaborate with our Williamson County health officials, and we're continuing to monitor our health data every week. And before Friday the 21st, we will make a decision about whether or not we will open in person on the 8th or extend virtual learning. And of course, that big decision is based primarily on health, in collaboration with our health officials, and really looking at whether conditions indicate that it is safe to bring the children back into the school system. And I know that's probably the million-dollar question. How do you make these decisions? It's not just one moment in time. It's really a collaboration effort with our health officials and looking at the data trends, making sure that by the time September 8th rolls around, that there's going to be a good indication that the data is going to continue on those downward trends, and that once again, that it's safe to bring our children back into the school building. So with that brief recap, we'll open up the chat room. If anyone has a clarification point, any burning question that you've had out there that you've not been able to get answered with the FAQs, we are open and available to you.
Isn't able to chat for some reason, we can let them speak.
The first question, how will my children be able to receive their learning disability services? Remember that our services, whether the children are in person or online, those continue. They may look a little bit different because we're in a virtual setting. They may even be enhanced because we're in a virtual setting, but that's part of the preparation. So today's the last day for our parents to make a selection of whether or not children will be in a virtual setting for the remainder of the semester, or however long a person wishes to keep their children in virtual learning, or whether the children will return in person when the schools open up again. And I mention that because our principals have not been able to complete the teacher assignments until those selections have been made. So over the next week, principals will be making those assignments, so those teacher to student assignments, so that when the teachers come in for preparation, then they'll start looking at their class rosters. They'll review all of the children who have 504 accommodations, who have special ed accommodations, and teachers will make themselves familiar with those accommodations and plan instruction accordingly. And of course, once you know who your child's teacher or teachers are going to be, you can always reach out to them and speak to them about the specific accommodations that will be extended for your children. But those do not go away because we're in a virtual setting. All right, let me scroll back up. What grades will the synchronized virtual learning take place? What will happen if they cannot log on at a particular time? So synchronized learning will be in grades 3 through 8, but in reality, all grade levels will have some sort of a synchronized time, a time when they're going to log in and check in with their teachers. And if Dr. Servani is online, I'm going to have him, Dr. Servani, if you can unmute yourself, maybe you can expand on that particular question a little more than I did.
Sure, and I think the short answer to that is that we know that there are some parents that will not be able to log in at a synchronized time, especially in the early grade levels. And part of the planning process was to work with parents on workarounds. So like what Dr. Thomas said, grades 3 through 8 are heavily synchronized. Grades PK through 2nd grade and grades 9 through 12 are more asynchronous. All grade levels will have some level of synchronized time, but there are workarounds. We've already been working with some parents on how to handle that. For a quick example would be in 1st grade, there's probably going to be a daily check-in meeting, at least one, so that the teacher and the student can see their classmates. I know of one parent who told me that they're at work with their child. They can't get the child away to log in. Not a problem. There's a way for that student still to be counted present based on TDA rules by completing an assignment later in the day and turning it in to the teacher. So anyone who runs into a problem with synchronized learning, I encourage you to contact the teacher and the campus once you get your assignments for class rosters, and talk to them about what are the issues that you're facing for that particular time slot.
So Dr. Servani, can you take on the next question, because it's very similar. It says, is there an option for working parents to do asynchronous versus synchronized virtual learning?
I wouldn't say there's an option between the two. So the instructional plans are meant to be flexible enough that we can, like I said, do some workarounds. Like I mentioned, the working parent that already contacted us, we knew going in that there were going to be some parents that could meet those particular synchronized times. So it's not where you opt into one or the other. I think some people, just by virtue of their work schedule, will end up really doing mostly asynchronized work. But if there is ever an opportunity, they will always be able to opt into those synchronized particular times. I will point out that at the upper grade levels, it becomes much more important to be at those synchronized moments. But then again, with the older children, it's much easier for them to self-monitor and log in. And my experience is mostly with the lower grade levels and younger children, where we have workarounds for them.
The next question is, how will virtual learning be assessed, not just for student progress, but for how effective it is and how it may be continued for the spring semester? So our teachers are going to be reverting back to the traditional grading policies that we had in place prior to the closure. So I think once teachers release the learning plans, they will also release the grading policies or the grading practices that go along with their particular class, their particular subject, their particular grade level. So there's a wide spectrum of those. But again, Dr. Servani, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, and I'll add one other piece that, Dr. Thomas, I haven't even had a chance to talk to you about. But just like in-person education, where we do some reading assessments and some math assessments that we would normally do to see if we're making progress, we've been working with campuses on how to do those virtually. We actually, we had a large number of kids, I say large number, I should say it's around 50 kids, who were working virtually in June and took some of these assessments. And we learned a lot about how to make those successful and measure students' reading progress. So we hope to be able to do that even in the virtual setting as well, and working with parents asynchronously to schedule a time where they can sit and help their child take a reading assessment, not for a grade, but just to find out whether we're being effective in teaching reading.
Thank you. If your child will be starting kindergarten, should we pick up a Chromebook? Yes. If you don't have one at home, we encourage you to pick up a Chromebook. And I think the latest parent information update had that schedule and those pickup times. They're all being distributed out of Hutto High School. Pardon me?
The main library.
Yes, the main library at Hutto High School. There's some signage.
The middle schools as well.
Oh, and the middle schools also. And once again, the schedule is on that, on the parent update. I haven't memorized it. All right, the next question, if we select virtual for the first grade period and then return to campus, will our students have a new instructor/class? The simple answer to that is more than likely yes. So if you start, one of the conditions that we are trying to honor is the assignments for our teachers, in that if they're assigned to a virtual classroom, they stay in that virtual setting versus an in-person setting. Because we don't know we don't know how long children are going to stay in that virtual setting. Some parents may decide to keep them in that virtual setting all year long, or they may only want that virtual setting for a certain period of time. And just to preserve the integrity of what's happening with that instruction, even though the content is the same, you do have to make some adjustments with the delivery, whether you're in person or it's virtual. So if you start out virtually and decide you want to come to campus, that's perfectly okay. We'll be sending out some communication later of when parents have to make that decision. Obviously, you can't make that decision on a Friday and expect to have a new assignment on a Monday. We need to give ourselves a 2-week window so that we are able to maintain balances, appropriate balances as far as numbers in our classrooms. But we will work with you on making those transitions. Next question, will we get a specific schedule / syllabus for our children for those that will be virtual? Yes, you will. And that's part of what the teachers will be working on here during the professional development time, is really establishing the schedule and the syllabus and the expectations and how the work will be assessed, how often kids have to complete work, when the work is due, how you get counted present, how you get counted absent, all of those logistical things, all of that information will come out directly from your teachers once they're assigned. Will the virtual teachers stay consistent through the year, or will they potentially change to teach in the classroom? Once again, it's all about numbers. So a teacher who starts out virtually could stay there, keep that virtual assignment all year long. But if all of those students decide they want in-person instruction, then obviously we have to shift our teaching resources to the setting where our children are. So there is a possibility that someone could start out virtually in the fall and they could be in person in the spring. Again, all depends on numbers and what our parents are selecting. Next one, do we have to purchase everything on the back to school list if the student will be doing virtual learning? Nope. Dr. Sermani is also nodding. You probably won't. You're going to need, your basic pencil, paper, some pen. They need the Chromebook. I think you're going to find that a lot of the virtual assignments can be done with what you have at home. So I would hold off on purchasing school supplies just yet if you're going to be in a virtual setting for a while. Good question. Will the teacher have a structured virtual learning platform besides just checking in with the teacher daily? Dr. Sermani, you want to take that one? You're probably better versed with the response.
Yes, Ms. McWilliams, if I don't answer your question exactly, please chime in. If I'm understanding right, this isn't going to be like it was in the spring. So they're probably, depending on the grade level, there's going to be a number of potentially daily or a few times a week check-ins in person virtually, but there will also be a number of assignments for all the different subject areas and electives built into a learning management system or a virtual learning platform, like you say. So there's going to be a minimum of about 240 minutes of work time every single day. And I'm throwing that number out there as an average because it varies depending on the grade level and age, but off the top of my head, as I was working on that this weekend. I think that that's a good benchmark for elementary grades. And then going up, it could be more.
Thank you. Do the hotspots on the laptops expand out of the Hutto, Texas area to rural Texas south of San Antonio? So the hotspots will work anywhere you have connectivity. If there's an internet signal, the hotspot will work. The Chromebook will also pick up an internet signal if there's a signal in the area. If you're going to a rural area where your cell phone doesn't work, the hotspot's not going to work either. I would really check on that geographic area and see what other services people have. Am I saying that correctly, Henry?
Yeah, and it's the service on our hotspot is Sprint.
Oh, okay.
So you want to check what kind of service Sprint has in the area.
Okay, very good.
The other thing I would say is some parents have confused. Let me mute myself and I'll just talk to you. Parents think that the hotspot is built into the device, and that is not the case. We have hotspots that are separate from the device that they're able to check out. We had that confusion during the initial shutdown. So your laptop has Wi-Fi capabilities as long as you can hit home internet service. If you don't have home internet service or intermittent service, you can use a hotspot because it picks up cell. But it won't work in areas where Sprint coverage is weak.
Okay, thank you. If my child will be in person the first 6 weeks, but switches to virtual the second 6 weeks, would he be switched from an in-class teacher to a virtual teacher? Yes, more than likely, yes, especially in the first 6 weeks.
Although one quinky dink of the secondary schedules, just so you know, as we've been building them, while your child's schedule will probably change, actually it's turning out, just because of the way things fell, that secondary kids will probably oftentimes have the same teacher for four classes, but their schedule will look different. So you'll get if you're a virtual student, you'll get one schedule for while you're virtual, and when you switch to in-person, the order of the classes will all shift around.
That's true. Thank you, Dr. Sharmani, because I've been thinking about just the elementary setting, but he's right. In a secondary setting, it could be possible. So we said our teachers are not going to be teaching simultaneously, meaning they're not going to have children in class and then children that they have to worry about virtual. So they're going to either do all virtual or all in class. So at a secondary level where a teacher has 6 or 7 periods, 3 of those periods may be with children who are actually sitting in class, and the other 3 or 4 class periods could be with children who are learning virtually. So yes, that's very possible. Will there be a virtual teacher for each campus and grade level? So luckily right now, and again, Dr. Sharmani can chime in with this one, but the numbers are, right now we've got 42% of our students who are selecting virtual instruction. So with those kind of numbers, it is working out where we do have a virtual teacher for each campus at every grade level. And again, once we start switching either from one setting to the other, it could throw those numbers off. But right now we have a virtual teacher on every campus for every grade level. Dr. Sharmani, is that correct? Is that about right?
Almost correct. Pre-K was different. I'll tell you that. So pre-K, there isn't one at every grade level. And then the other difference is we actually have, the numbers aren't even. So we have a few teachers that are going to have virtual students from other campuses. So while the student might remain on their home campus, they'll be working with the teacher virtually who is situated on a different elementary school campus, just because the numbers didn't work out quite evenly.
Yeah. Okay. You want to take on the next one? How may dual language for elementary work for the virtual student?
Good afternoon, Ms. Santisteban. It's good to see you, or hear you actually, I guess. Dual language, it'll work virtually. We have been, the dual language principals have been working out how that might look. We are actually kind of considering if you understand the team teaching concept that you've seen in the past, Ms. Santisteban, that might actually work best for the teachers and the students, just because the numbers fell just right. And so we may have that same team teaching concept going. As far as the ways the instruction looks, one of the things that we did over summer is we actually had a number of students working in a dual language environment over the summer. And we learned quite a bit about teaching that instruction during the summer in June. And I say dual language, it was actually a one-way Spanish to be exact. But we learned that it can be done, and we think we can do this. I don't really have any other details beyond that right now, since the principals are going to start working on the actual schedules for those teachers next.
Gideon, the next one, does it matter if we have a regular computer / laptop versus a Chromebook? Wasn't sure about compatibility of platforms. I would say probably not.
No.
No.
There are parents that would prefer to use their own devices at home, and most of what is going to be taught will be a web-based Google platform, and so there's no integration issues. Your children can still log into Google and get their assignments, and they'll be obviously protected by our filtering system. But whether you use our device or the one you provide, there shouldn't be any issues. However, there's a handy help desk number on any questions you may have in regards to technology. So as you begin to use that in supporting your child's instruction, we're here to support you. And I believe our parent support groups are also set up to provide training and assistance where we can.
Obviously, they just can't use their device in the school.
Right.
But
Yeah, the only challenge is your device in our schools has to travel through our filters to get on our internet. So
yeah.
It's really just at home where you'll have that convenience.
Dr. Sermani, will you tackle the next one? Will speech assessments be done virtually? You know?
I think that might be in particular for the type of the assessment being done. I would contact the campus. I believe the speech teachers are back already. I do know some assessments are done in person, so it's possible it's in person, but I think, again, I know some assessments were done virtually. So I think that depends on a child's particular needs.
Okay. How are teachers being divided or split between virtual and in-person? And once again, our principals are handling the teachers' assignments. If teachers ask for a virtual assignment, our principals are going to consider those requests first, obviously, but it's also based on the numbers on each grade level, at the secondary level, just the numbers between some of the, between all of the classes. So it is a scheduling nightmare for our principals. I have to hand it to them. I know Ms. Abrams and Mrs. Raquel are online, and they are working tirelessly to make that happen, because they're actually running side by side dual schedules, one for the virtual students and one for the in-person. Let's see, it's from Tina. Google Classroom is not very user-friendly, and with 2 medical professional parents, we feel as though our kindergarten child last year suffered obviously with the Google Classroom. Ms. Tina, what we can tell you with that is we do have a new and improved method of delivering instruction this year. I think our teachers did a bang-up job with the short notice that we had to turn our entire delivery from in-person to remote. But I know our teachers have been working really hard this summer on preparing lessons that are much more engaging. Our folks today, I was also part of a planning meeting. We're in the process of creating some specific instructions for our kids from day 1, so that we can try to troubleshoot some of these issues that gave kids a problem last year. So give us a chance to roll out our new and improved version of virtual learning this fall. And as always, please, as soon as you encounter that first problem, reach out to your teacher, and we'll do our very best to troubleshoot the situation with you. And if we need to get our tech folks involved, we will do that as well. What is the percentage of current elections for in-person versus virtual? 42% of our families have chosen virtual versus in-person, but we're culling through those lists because there were quite a few folks that put in double and quadruple entries in some cases. So after tonight's, again, since today is the last day of selecting, our folks will go through and clean up those lists. So, but if I had to give an answer right now, based on what we saw at the last count, it's about 42% selecting virtual.
So, can you make a clarification? The hotspot service is T-Mobile, it's not Sprint.
Oh,
I wrote it in on the chat, but I misspoke. I checked, double checked with Dave.
okay. Well, T-Mobile has bought Sprint.
Oh, okay. Mr. Masters was the one that was asking about it, so, and I see
okay.
it's still on, so.
Okay, Mr. Masters, you had a question about the hotspots. Our provider is T-Mobile, but I was telling these guys that T-Mobile bought out Sprint, so it's kind of one and the same right now. At least that's what I read the last time. The last time I managed to listen to the news. All right, let's see. If we do virtual learning the first 9 weeks and we switch, is it a guarantee that patient will go back to their home campus, or is there a chance it will have to go to another campus? No. Once you decide to come back to in-person, you would go back to your home campus. First grade this year, are school professionals understanding that some kids will need to complete assignments, et cetera, when parents are able, like on weekends? Yes. And those are some factors that we are building in. That's going to be part of our training and our comeback planning beginning August the 6th. Dr. Sermani, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do want to add to that unlike last year where TEA allowed us to wait until the weekend for kids to do work, they're not going to allow us to do it just like we did last time. There is going to have to be daily progress noted every single day for us to be able to count a student present. And that's not a Hutto ISD thing, that's a state of Texas thing. Now, mark my words, I said that we have to determine that the student made progress, and we can do a number of things to determine that, but it can't all wait to the weekend. There's going to be some things that have to be done on a daily basis. But again, Tina, I would ask that you reach out to your campus early on when you get your roster. Talk with your teacher. If your teacher doesn't know how to do a workaround, they'll talk to their principal, and we'll keep working at it to try to find a way that works for both the state of Texas and your family.
Thank you for that. Will virtual learning students have access to school libraries to check out books? Once we're back in person, yes, you will have access to our libraries. We've not worked through those logistics yet. Obviously, we're gonna have to check in with our principals, because if our current plan holds true and we are able to return to in-person school on September the 8th, we are coming back at a stage 3, which means no outside people. Once we receive all of our staff and all of our children in the morning, the doors are locked. No visitors, no deliveries, nothing is allowed. No one is allowed to come onto campus. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to close the library to our virtual kids. We just may have to make arrangements, may have to be after hours, just so that we can control, once again, that foot traffic and any chance of contamination coming into the building. But the short answer to that is yes, we'll work with you on making sure you have access to the books.
Just a side note, I was just going to say, Dr. Thomas, we are in the process of beefing up our electronic book offering for students in a virtual setting, so they'd be able to check those books out. So more to come as we get that done. We have some ebooks, but not as many as I would like for this, for 40% of our students being online.
Yes, great, thank you for that. In person, Dr. Sermani, what will specials and recess look like? we've been struggling with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say that's actually on the agenda for the principals tomorrow to talk with. We've had initial round of talks. Some principals have kind of figured it out. I don't want to say anything right now until we get it settled. The answer might be it's different from campus to campus due to the physical setup of the building and the number of teachers and number of students. So as we get closer, we'll communicate that out when it gets closer to in-person instruction.
How will we find out which teachers are going to be, and how will we get in contact with them? Do you know when we're going to release that information, Dr. Sermani?
I wasn't following the question because I lost track of.
Oh, okay, because I think you know what, it just came to me privately. I can see it, but you can't. So when will teacher assignments go out? Do you know? When will parents be able to see who their teachers are on Skyward?
Okay, I understand. I don't know exactly, but I'll give you this timeline. Tomorrow, at midnight tonight, the survey closes. Tomorrow, the principals and I are going to try to set staffing by tomorrow evening, so we know how many of every teacher and how many sections of everything we need. From there, the principals are going to be contacting the teachers on Thursday and Friday to let them know. And from there, we will be building the rosters into the computer system. And as soon as that's done, we will be sending it out. So theoretically, it can be as quickly as Friday. I think they might need the weekend as well, so it might not be till early next week, but it'll definitely be early next week because we're going to be setting up virtual Meet the Teacher nights next week, and you got to know who you're logging in. And by the way, that information will probably come initially by email, so keep a lookout. I know a lot of teachers will be calling just to remind families that they're getting that email.
Okay. Once again, I have a child going into 5th grade and one into 4th grade. How is virtual learning going to work for them?
So 4th and 5th grade is mostly synchronous. And I'm struggling to remember, we created some sample schedules and I'm having trouble remembering where we posted them. But basically your child's gonna get a schedule from their teacher. It's gonna look a lot like a schedule you would see in a regular school day with a block of ELA, a block of reading and writing, some math, some social studies, your child might be invited to individual tutoring at a point during the day or a group time to work. And then there will also be time in the day for lunch, for breaks, and for what we call asynchronous work time, where your child can do specials, assignments, recess at home, or even work on some of their assignments the teacher had given them. And that would be what a day would look like. And I think we skipped one question, Dr. Thomas.
Oh, we did? I'm sorry. Oh, if my child does, that's an important one. If my child does inclusion, how will we get those services? Or would he just be working with his 1st grade teacher? No, those inclusion services will also be part of that virtual learning. So depending on how those services are outlined in your IEP, you could have a separate contact time from that inclusion teacher, but that is definitely something that is going to be built into that schedule. Dr. Sermani, is there anything you want to add?
I know, that's exactly right. And of course, it's very contextual. Each individual student has different needs. And so we're going to work our best to meet those needs in a virtual environment as best we can.
Okay. So I think one of the latest parent updates that went out, it did have some samples of what virtual learning was going to look like. Is there a date when the parents will know who okay, we addressed that one. That second part of that question, my team, is there an option to put my twins with the same teachers for virtual learning? I would say reach out to your campus principal and communicate directly with them regarding that request. I think that's a reasonable one. Thank you for being patient with me. I actually ordered new glasses and I haven't made time to get out of this office and go get them, so I'm squinting a little bit. What is the threshold that must be met in order to return to face-to-face schooling on the 4th of September? Well, that's a tough one, but so let me give you kind of an idea of what's happening now. CDC recommends, the Center for Disease Control recommends that we have positive cases trending no more than 5 to 100,000 people in population. So a 5 to 100,000. Anything less than that is considered not necessarily safe, but if they're trending down, that's kind of your magic number that you want in order to return to in-person instruction. Well, we aim for the 5, not necessarily. Right now, the numbers, last Thursday, when we had a call in with our local health authorities, right now the cases are trending in the mid-20s for every 100,000 people in population. So obviously that is still extremely high. But 2 weeks before that, they were in the 30s. So we're obviously trending down. As long as those numbers are in that positive direction. That's one of the data points that we look at. We also look at the number of available hospital beds, right? How many people are actually in the hospital? How many people are actually in ICU? So we look at a variety of data points in conjunction with our local health authorities. So again, it's not just one data point, but we do work in collaboration with our folks. I would like to know when the actual in-person learning will take place for kindergarten students. All right, so right now we are planning to come back on Tuesday after Labor Day. But again, like I was saying before with the other question, we're still looking at our data. We will come together with other area superintendents and our local health authorities on Thursday the 20th. By Friday the 21st, you'll probably get a communication late in the day of what that decision will be, whether we're going to be ready to open on the 8th or whether we're going to have to extend virtual learning for additional weeks. My apologies, parents are.
Please get that. That was the T-Mobile.
Okay, all right. Can parents opt for virtual learning for their kindergarten kids for the entire year? When can parents decide to switch their kids from virtual to in-person? All right, so we know that from our end, we need at least a 2-week notice to make teacher assignments and to really keep an eye on class numbers. Both numbers for the classes that are virtual and for the classes that are in person. So could you select virtual learning all year? The commissioner has given that option for the state of Texas for this coming year. We are going to send out some guidelines of when you need to notify us that you want to make a switch, either to come in person or to go from in person to virtual. We have not sent out those specific dates yet, but it'll more than likely be at least 2 weeks before the end of a grading period, so that your child is able to start on that Monday of a new grading period. If you have not chosen virtual versus in person by today, what happens? We assume that you're going to bring your child to in-person learning on September the 8th. We're still going to assign a schedule. We're still going to assign a teacher or teachers. And so on Tuesday, August the 18th, everybody's going to receive instructions on how to get learning started. So for the first 3 weeks, everybody's virtual. So if you did not select virtual instruction on Tuesday, September the 8th, if we happen to come back to in-person, then we would expect your child to come and follow their schedule in an in-person setting like they were assigned. Hope that made sense. How is the school and classroom going to make it safe for in-person learning? Wow, that's a loaded question. As a matter of fact, our principals meeting tomorrow, we have tried to cover everything from A to Z about all of the measures that we're taking in order to ensure safety. First and foremost, it begins every morning when we wake up. Whether you're an adult or whether you're a student or you're a parent, we wake up and we all have to make a commitment to do a self-screening, right? And you've got those screening items that you have to ask yourself every morning. Am I exhibiting any symptoms along these lines? We have not finalized a screening app yet. We're hoping to have an online screening option, hopefully by the time we come back in person, where a parent or a staff member would say, no, I don't exhibit any of these symptoms and I'm ready to go to work, or I'm ready to go to school. So it begins there. When the children arrive on campus, if they're riding the school bus or whether you're dropping them off, everyone will be wearing masks anytime they're riding a school bus or as they set foot on campus. So anytime we're in movement or in close proximity to others, we are all going to wear a mask. As a matter of fact, before, you can't see it, but you look over my desk, I have my mask within reach. So anytime we're in motion and we're gonna violate that social distancing rule, we have to wear our masks. Every entrance to our schools is gonna have sanitizer. Every classroom will have sanitizing wipes and sanitizing lotion for our kids to use. We're going to minimize any type of sharing of items in the classroom. When things need to be shared, they will be immediately cleaned and wiped down before another person touches them. Teachers are going to teach our children about hygiene and how we're going to keep each other safe as we work in this environment. I know there's been a big question about masks. A lot of our parents don't want children in masks. And so when we understand that even as us as adults, we have problems keeping our masks on all the time, but we've got to be safe. If we're choosing to come into in-person instruction, we have to make a commitment to keep ourselves safe and keep the person next to us safe. So the rule is that once you get into a classroom, if I'm able to sit down and I am 6 feet apart from other kids or other people, I can take my mask off. Now, children from pre-K through 3rd grade, they can remove their masks off in the classroom and keep it off while they're in the classroom. Now, if a teacher can ask them to put on their mask, if they're gonna bring them up close and work in small groups, then that teacher could ask the children to put on their mask while they're working together in those round U-shaped tables, or they're doing small group work where the kids are going to be in close proximity. But other than that, the little ones pre-K through 3rd grade, they don't need to wear their mask while they're in the classroom. Everybody older, anytime you're in motion, anytime you leave the classroom, anytime you leave your seat and you're going to make contact with another student, you have to put on your mask. Henry, you want to chime in with all of the extra cleaning that's going to take place in buildings and in classrooms?
Sure. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm talking through Dr. Thomas's microphone and on the video here in the same room. It's really about prevention and mitigation. What I'd like to reassure parents and our faculty and our kiddos is our standard response protocols for our normal cleaning and sanitation processes as it relates to COVID are very effective, and COVID is very easy to both prevent and to get rid of through our normal cleaning and normal sanitizing. Parents need to know that we use EPA certified chemicals. I know I get teased for using the term quaternary, but quaternary cleaners are used as a way to combat. These are not necessarily ammonia based. They are safe to use around children in our school systems. And so we have already very, very effective, just standard cleaning and sanitizing protocols that have been in place, because y'all all know we deal with the flu season. Occasionally we'll have staph and MRSA and other types of communicable diseases that we have to be on safeguard. So I'll just say that to reassure you that what we do is a very basic, is very effective against COVID. However, we're going to be increasing the frequency, particularly of wiping down those high touch points throughout the day. And we're asking teachers and staff and even some of the students, as it's incorporated into teaching about hygiene, on how to police themselves during the day and perhaps use provided white bleach towelettes or alcohol towelettes to wipe down surfaces. We're going to have additional custodians on duty during the day to support the typical day porters that we have in place. And they'll be armed with tasks to go into restrooms and to go after the water fountains, and whenever children change and go between classes and specials or classes and lunch, we'll be going into rooms and doing extra wipe downs. We had a great meeting last week with HEB, and many parents know that our local HEB has stayed open throughout this whole COVID crisis. And we kind of compared our notes to what HEB has done in their system in order to operate. And they have as many as 7,000 customers that come through their stores. In this case, at the Gaddis School Road location on a daily basis. And it's a point of pride for the HEB partners and for the leadership there that they've been successful at staying open. Obviously, they've got the COVID guidelines that you're going to see in our schools as well, that we're all kind of learning. And I think that's maybe a silver lining for us, because we've all kind of been able to practice social distancing. I think a lot of our kids have been exposed to that. So a lot of what you've seen in HEB is mimicked, or at restaurants, it's mimicked and will be utilized in our school system. We'll do some things like manage our air quality a little differently. All of our schools are under state guidelines when it comes to the mechanical operation of our air systems. And there's a certain amount of fresh air that's mixed in our campuses on a daily basis. And that's required by law. And that's mainly to prevent CO2 levels or CMO2 levels and other types of airborne concerns that in the old days, when air conditioning was just recycled air, sometimes you'd have sick buildings. But for the last 20 years, school districts have deployed new standards for mixing fresh air in with the air handling systems. And so we'll combat that by increasing the amount of fresh air that goes into the building on a daily basis, allowing as long as we keep all of our external doors closed, allowing doors to be propped open internally so that air can move around a little bit. And the whole goal is to keep the air moving and let things like our bipolar ionization systems that are in our air conditioning take care of anything that's floating around. And all of that will neutralize the spread of the germs. But like I said, just the basics of hand washing, it's all about the soap and hot water and washing your hands, right? It's about wiping down our surfaces on a more frequent basis. It's doing those preventative things that you can help us with by making sure that your youngsters come to school without any symptoms. And we follow them from the time you hand them over to our custody till we give them back to you. And then we reaffirm social distancing and hand washing and all the different types of guidelines that are there. But we feel very, very confident that if we do the prevention and the mitigation, we can have in person very, very successfully. But the partnership relies on you guys as well. And we appreciate all the support that you give us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gideon. And I know you've got another meeting to get to at 6:30. So that was just perfect timing.
Thank you, parents. Thank you very much for your support.
All right, Dr. Sermani, this one, essential working parents with schedules from 6 until 9 o'clock at night. Will the Hutto District work with us on the scheduling? And of course, the answer to that is yes, of course we will. There are requirements that are sent down to us from the Texas Education Agency regarding daily progress with children, but we also have the ability to build in some flexibility. It's just a matter of making contact with your children's teacher and working something out that's going to be good for the kids and good for you as parents as well. Okay. Dr. Sermani?
Oh, yeah.
What were you going to add to that?
No, I think you said it right, and I saw the different grade levels, Mr. Masters, and not gonna lie to you, that it's going to be tough. That's not to say it's not doable. Tough part is going to be how much can we help you with your child's education. We have built in some flexibility about attendance, so there are some workarounds, and yours are probably going to take a little bit more in depth, and I would definitely involve the principal early on as well. And if they need guidance, they'll contact with me, since I'm the one who's been reading all the state's rules and exceptions and et cetera, et cetera. But we'll work with you.
Thank you. So Ms. Griggs, that is correct. Excuse me. If you have already completed a survey for the virtual learning option, you don't need to do it again. And I think several parents did it a couple of times, I guess maybe to make sure they had done it. And this is why we've got all these multiple entries. So if you already did it back on July the 19th, that's right. Please don't do it again. Good question. What will the sitting arrangement be when the learning process kickstarts? Well, we're having a challenge with that. I'm just going to be totally transparent and honest. I can sit here and tell you that we're going to have, in our classrooms, we're going to have everybody sitting 6 feet apart. That's the goal, and we're going to do our very best to get there. But it's going to be tough in some classrooms, and we're going to have to get creative with all of the space that we have available in a building so that we are able to spread the children out. We may have to use a classroom next door. We may have to use hallway space. We may need to use nooks and crannies around the classroom. We're not going to obviously send children off to little nooks and crannies all by themselves, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say is that we need to get creative with using every space available. We just invested millions of dollars in brand new furniture for our elementary schools. And that the furniture was designed for collaborative learning. So I'm not going to tell you, it's not easy. We're kind of standing there breaking our heads thinking, all right, we bought this furniture for collaborative learning, but now we've got to spread everybody out 6 feet apart. But just have some faith in us, trust us. We're going to do our very best to arrange children where there's safe space between them. Our poor teachers, our teachers love to decorate their rooms and they love to bring stuff from home. And for this year, some of our decorations and things that we bring to make our classrooms homey may have to stay home for a while until we can get past this pandemic. But that is part of our challenge right now, and we're working on it. How are we going to find out which teacher will be by, we're working on that. We'll get that out as soon as possible. Today, once after the survey tonight, we will get working on those assignments. Okay, Dr. Sermani, most parents can barely fit in what is truly essential, such as English, math, social studies. So specials should be scaled back. It's just added unneeded stress.
Yeah, I completely understand. Every family is different. Specials is really important to a lot of families, so we want to make sure we provide that. But just as a completely practical point, because our teachers, when we get back to in-person learning, all our specials teachers are going to have students in front of them all day long. So because of that, we're actually not going to grade the virtual specials if you have opted for virtual learning. So although we're going to be providing those modules and we're going to provide PE, no one's going to put a grade on them. So if you decide you want to be you don't want your kid to work on it because you want to focus on reading, that's your decision and that's okay.
If my child is needing to be cared for by grandparents in another state due to parent schedules, is there anything special we need to do for our virtual learners? God bless you. That's fantastic to have grandparents that can take the children. I would be one of those grandparents taking my kids as well. And I think what's most important is that the grandparents know how to log the children in. And once again, we're working on getting those instructions clearly laid out in print and in video so that a parent would be able to easily follow the instructions and get a child logged on to their learning. Dr. Sermani, any more details on that?
No, but I appreciate that you want to keep your children in Hippo Nation.
Yes.
And so thank you, and no problem.
Mm-hmm. If the survey isn't done, will your child be in school automatically? Yes, of course. If your child is already registered and is already in our system, if you didn't do the survey, your child is already ours. We're just going to, he or she will start virtual learning on the 18th, but then on September the 8th, you can send them right to school with us. I hope we can start on the 8th.
It's a great opportunity to remind them, everybody has to register, even if they're doing virtual learning.
Okay, so everybody's got to complete the registration process?
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Sermani?
If you're a returning student, the registration process is really very simple and it's verifying unless you have some shots that you need to get done. But if you're new to Hutto ISD, regardless of whether you're in person or virtual, you need to do the entire registration process.
I don't know the answer to the next one, Dr. Sermani. Will Class Dojo be utilized for parents of virtual students?
That I don't know. Classroom Dojo is not a district thing, so it might have been a campus or an individual teacher. I know what Classroom Dojo does, so there should be some level or some manner of communication going back and forth to parents, and also help for you to monitor your students' progress regardless of what product is used.
Okay, great, thank you. What virtual platform are we using for synchronous learning? Google Classroom and Canvas.
And I think he's actually talking about the video platform, which is Google Hangout.
Okay.
And really we use Google Hangout for one important reason is we have an agreement with them on privacy and storage of private data. So when we film it, it records straight into our servers that we can have control over.
The cutoff for parents to choose virtual or in person tonight at midnight is the cutoff date for you to select virtual or in person. So if you don't fill out the survey, we're going to assume that you want in person, even though we're starting with 100% virtual. Now, there'll be other opportunities to change your mind, and we'll be putting out those dates with the next parent update. I have 3 girls starting kindergarten, 4th and 5th grades. How will the schedule work for my girls from 6 a.m. to 8? How will schedule work for my girls?
He has a kindergarten, a 4th grader, and a 5th grader, so has the schedule going to work from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., I'm guessing.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah,
Dr.
he had asked the question earlier, Mr. Masters did, and he's the one, we need to talk with the principal and the teacher to figure out what we can do to support him.
okay.
And making sure his kids get what they need.
Okay. Do parents have to monitor their kids all day? Like my kids is going to be 5 and be 5 in 4th grade. Are they okay by themselves because we both have different work schedules? In 5th and I'm assuming it's 5th and 4th grade. Dr. Sermani, you want to tackle that? Because I think most 4th and 5th graders can handle the virtual instruction. They're pretty intuitive at that age.
Yeah, we 3rd grade is the one that's a little iffy. 4th and 5th grade, by that time they can log themselves in. It's really going to be a parental decision about how much supervision your children need during the learning. There's going to be a lot of synchronous time. So if the child's not interacting correctly in that synchronous time, we'll be contacting the parent to let them know that. But generally speaking, 4th, 5th graders, we should be fine without the parent standing over their shoulder.
Right, great. The schedule samples that were sent were hard to view. Is there another place where we can view them? We will get those on the FAQs as attachments if you had a hard time viewing them on the email that went out. Will school staff be tested for COVID-19 before in-person school starts? No, our school staff will not be required to test for COVID-19. We don't have the ability to do that. Staff members, of course, can do it on their own, but it's not one of the requirements. We do require the self-screening each and every day. Yeah. Many people are saying there will naturally be a spike in COVID cases when school buildings reopen. What is the threshold that would cause a school to have to be closed? The threshold is when you have a 10% infection rate in the entire campus. In order for that campus to be closed, you close a classroom when you have 2 or more cases in a classroom. Those are the current guidelines that we're using right now to determine closing a school. How will school lunches be handled? Well, very carefully, and our cafeteria folks are really trying to create the individual lunches with the, I don't even know, I'm losing my words, with the covers so that we're able to hand those off to children. Our cafeteria manager was trying to get as many of those covered lunch plates as possible. We're also looking at, obviously, we're purchasing plexiglass dividers to place on the cafeteria tables to create a buffer with the children. And of course, the rule is that obviously when you're eating, you remove your mask. And then as soon as you finish eating, then you'll have to wear your mask, put your mask back on until you can get back into the classroom or you can go outside. But yes, we're looking at our numbers. And again, after tonight, once we figure out how many children we're actually going to have in the building and how many children we're actually going to have per lunch, then we'll figure out how many children we can safely have in the cafeteria. All right, it's 6:31. I'm going to answer one more, and then I promise we will get the rest of the questions to you. I think we've done pretty good. For the first day of school, will the kids, specifically the smaller kids, be guided to their assigned classrooms? Yes, you need not worry. I know we have to keep our buildings closed for visitors and for our parents, and I know that's heart-wrenching for many of you who'd like to walk the children in, especially on the first day, but I promise you there's going to be somebody there. There's going to be an adult with a smile ready to greet them and take them to their classrooms. Who will check temperatures before entering? We are not taking temperatures for our children at this time. That is not a recommended guideline from the Texas Education Agency because most children are asymptomatic. It's just an unnecessary practice at this time. Our seats going to be further apart and limited in the rooms. Will you need volunteers to help wipe down surfaces? Thank you for asking. I wish we could allow volunteers in, but I think one of the things that we're committed to from day one is that we're going to teach our children what it's going to take from all of us to stay clean and to stay safe. So we're going to have plenty of supplies for the children in the classroom. And for parents, we've had this question a lot, can we help you buy supplies or the things that you need? Please, we ask that you don't buy any supplies only because we have to be very mindful of the chemicals that we allow in the classrooms. If we're going to have kids wipe down their own surfaces and wipe down their things, the chemicals and the wipes that we use have to be safe for children. And obviously, they've got to do the job of disinfecting. But yes, that's going to be part of the orientation and part of what we do together as far as keeping ourselves safe and wiping everything down that we touch. If we're going to share anything, we're going to limit sharing as much as possible. Sometimes you will have to share some things, but we're going to teach our kids before it's passed on to the next person. We wipe it down and we hand something that's clean for the next person to use. So that's all part of the orientation.
There's only about 4 more if you want to.
Oh, only 4 more? Okay. Emergency drills will continue. Yes, emergency drills will continue. That does not go away. How many kids will be in a classroom and in online classes? So at the elementary level, kindergarten through 4th grade, 22 to 1. At the upper grades, you can go as high as 25. We'll try to keep those numbers down as much as possible. But I think that's one of the questions that we've had. And see what happens here is the staffing ratio doesn't go down, whether you're teaching virtually or whether you're teaching in person. It's still a certain number. That's how we hire teachers. We hire teachers at certain staffing ratios. And so those are the number of staff that we have. We are expecting, if the growth continues in this area, our demographic reports indicate that we're going to get quite a few new students. If all of these numbers realize and the children actually show up and we need to hire additional teachers, we will certainly do so. But right now it's the standard ratios. Will virtual syllabus mirror in-class syllabus timeline? Yes. There is no change in curriculum or what your children are going to be expected to learn. All of our teachers, again, whether virtual or in person, we're all required to follow the state mandated curriculum. So that does not change based on the setting. For clarification, does synchronous learning for kindergarten mean they do not need to be in front of a computer any particular time as long as the work is done? Yes and no. Dr. Sermani?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself there. So for kindergarten instruction, one of the things we built into the system this time is to have some of those structured meeting points, and we definitely want the children to be there at those synchronous points. However, there are asynchronous times when, no, the student doesn't have to be in front of the computer at a particular time in order to do the assignments. All that being said, just like I said at the beginning, if you have a particular issue where you know your child's not going to be at those synchronous checkpoints, just reach out to the teacher and let us work around that for you. One of the lessons we learned in the spring was parents really wanted those synchronous checkpoints. However, some need the flexibility. So we're trying to get the best of both worlds.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Please remember that once the teachers are assigned, you're going to get a lot more communication and a lot more contact. And I realize it's hard right now because we don't know who the teachers are going to be or what the schedule is going to look like. But we've worked really hard this summer on developing consistency in how we're going to communicate and how we're going to roll out instruction so that it's seamless, so it's a much better experience than what we had in the spring. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out. You've got my email, you've got Dr. Sermani. We're happy to speak to anyone or exchange communication if you feel you want to have that one-on-one dialogue. So we'll get whatever was typed in after this time. We will make sure that we address those questions. And again, if they're not in the FAQ document, we'll make sure that it's uploaded there. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. To our principals and staff who joined in, thank you so very much. Have a great night.